Nancy Drew, Sea of Darkness isn't my favorite, but it's a good game. For years, it was the last game of the series, and it's not a bad note to end the series on. It's definitely the best game out of games 30 through 33, arguably the best game since game 26. It starts with a great scene of the Hirlakide crashing into the harbor. Nancy gets a letter from a professional treasure hunter named Dagny Silva. Nancy has found so much treasure over the years, it'd be amazing if she didn't have contacts in the treasure industry. Nancy goes to Skiprot, Iceland, where Dagny recaps the plot for players who couldn't be bothered to read that letter. Dagny and a local man named Magnus have spent 2 years restoring a historic ship. The ship has puzzles and clues, leading to a legendary lost treasure. Magnus just disappeared. Dagny thinks he took the treasure and ran away, while the locals think he drowned. Dagny wants you to find him and the treasure, but mainly the treasure. Dagny is a fast-talking jerk, but I kinda like her. All the characters in this game have distinct voices and far more personality than the characters in the last few games. The writing and the dialogue in this game is a noticeable improvement over the last two. Dagny says Elizabeth refuses to let anyone on board. You'll have to ask Soren, the festival organizer, for help. A minor but welcome improvement is the fact that conversations end automatically in this game. That is, if your only conversation option is goodbye, Nancy automatically says it without you needing to click it. On a pole here is a poster about snowmobiles. It says Elizabeth has the snowmobile keys. The poster is funny and weird, like whoever wrote it knew most players wouldn't read the whole thing, so they felt free to make a long list of weird side effects. Soren works in the nearby building, which is sort of like a museum. It has some displays and a gift shop with swords. That makes it way better than last game's museum. Soren's a friendly fellow, with a noticeable edge of nervousness and a lack of confidence because everyone in town hates him. Maybe they just hate his sweater. There is a puzzle with the knots display. There's a minor interface change. Whenever you start a puzzle in this game, the puzzle instructions appear in blue in the Notes tab. That's another good change. Like the skip button, it would have been great if this had been first introduced in Game 3 or 2, not Game 32. The puzzle instructions aren't perfect. The first time I played the game, I got stuck on the crystal puzzle because the on-screen instructions weren't the full puzzle instructions. The majority of the time, though, the puzzle instructions are great. The knots puzzle is a good enough sorting puzzle. The top and bottom knots are similar enough to make it tricky. Solving it gives you a card with the word gunpowder on it. That lets you look in a cannon on the ship. The first thing you do on the ship is meet Elizabeth. She's my least favorite character of the game, but she has an awesome song and dog, so I wouldn't get rid of her character for anything. Nancy's notes say Elizabeth has a bit of a temper, which seems accurate. I think she has an appropriate amount of anger based on the situation. She's upset about Magnus's disappearance and she wants nothing to do with Dagny. She gives you a snowmobile key after making sure you won't steal it. The captain's wheelhouse is the highest room of the ship, and yes, I only know it's called a wheelhouse because there's a joke conversation about that word in The Silent Spy. The wheelhouse has a captain's log which lists all the masts and sails in order. You can use this information to solve a puzzle in Soren's area. I forget what happens when you solve the puzzle. I usually skip it, so I'm guessing the puzzle reward isn't that great. Inside the ship is a captain's room. It has a triangle puzzle box. I like this puzzle. When you touch a triangle, it affects all the triangles around it. Get them all pushed down to find letters between Magnus and Elizabeth. It sounds like they're dating, and this is confirmed by a happy couple picture of them by the dog bed. Magnus twice asks to see the long spiel. I don't know why he talks like it's in an off-limits area or something. It's on the wall of the pub where anyone can reach it. There's a puzzle finding the 11 differences between the two halves. I think it's a decent puzzle. Most of the puzzles in this game are good. Solving it gives you a gear. The captain's desk has instructions for the stuffed animal puzzle and half of the locator. Nancy is enthusiastic about breaking into the antique desk. You need to figure out the numbers and colors of the blank spots. The solution is that each row has numbers that add up to 9 and the same number of yellow squares. Inside the desk is a lighthouse key and Dagny's complaints that news of the treasure hunt was leaked to the press. Magnus has a sad and paranoid journal with a special focus on the recent death of his father. The last page explains the title charts puzzle. There's a page with a word puzzle, which is pretty hard, but I like it. You have to spell out all the words by marking each letter as red for row or blue for column. It must have taken forever to make this puzzle, but I'm glad they did. It's good. When you solve it, you get a bunch of letters. Take pins from the closet and put them on the map. Each letter from the puzzle gets a pin. They spell out the number 14. This is also a good puzzle. You need 2 other numbers for the title charts puzzle. One is scratched into the top of the main mast. You can get picture scraps here. The other is behind some barnacles, which are near the dinghy at low tide. Use the hook to find it. The hook is on the stand, outside of the Misty Skip. The stand has a paper saying, "Gunnar caused chaos at a town meeting." He threw bottles at Soren, because he didn't like Soren's changes to the festival. Gunnar, that's not a good way to deal with your frustrations. The dinghy's on the dock opposite of the ship. When Nancy sees it's broken, she can ask Soren for help. He has an award-winning pamphlet about dinghies and ice hooks. What an oddly specific combination of subjects. Towards the bottom of the ship, there is a barrel with a note from Dagny. She complains she wants Gunnar's coaster, and she changed her phone password to Scuttlebutt. Inside the room is a flashlight. Look inside the cannon to see duct tape and ropes. Nancy suspects someone kidnapped Magnus. If you ask Elizabeth, she says no, he's not inside the closet that she's guarding, and no, you can't check. Go away. Elizabeth gives you a paper belonging to Magnus. It has instructions for various puzzles. This game is inconsistent about puzzle instructions. Nancy solved all the puzzles in the captain's quarters just fine without finding separate instructions for them. She keeps these 3 puzzle instructions for most of the game. Although Nancy finds crystal puzzle instructions, she doesn't keep them with her. The inconsistent puzzle instructions aren't that big a deal. I just wonder how they decided which puzzles get special instructions, and which special instructions get to stay in the inventory. The captain's log says Dagny has a radio key. When you visit Dagny, she complains the heater is broken. She's way too cold. Instead of zipping up her jacket all the way, she forces Nancy to fix the heater. This is a puzzle I don't like. Nancy comments on how weird it is. You put pieces on the board to get the 5 numbers at the bottom of the screen. I hope there are multiple solutions, that would make it easier. Nancy and Dagny talk during the puzzle. Nancy tries to get Dagny to be her friend, with no success. Dagny doesn't want to be friends with anyone. When you solve the puzzle, Dagny gives you the radio key. She says you'll have to be sneaky to get the key to Magnus's cabin out of Elizabeth's bag. I kinda wish Dagny offered to help distract Elizabeth for you, because the real distraction takes a while. Use the radio key in the wheelhouse. Nancy talks to Alex, who is easily the funniest character of the game. She's worried she'll be fired because she hasn't done the boring parts of her job in months. She can't lose this internship, man! She doesn't want to go back to being a barista! Alex was the last person to talk to Magnus. Alex and Magnus were talking, he heard a voice on deck. He went out to investigate. She heard some shouting and silence. Nancy worries Magnus was abducted. Alex agrees to help you rob Elizabeth if you fix the lighthouse. If somebody doesn't fix the lighthouse soon, Alex will be forced to get up out of her chair. Obviously, she doesn't want to do that. First, you have to enter the Misty Skip pub. Gunnar is at the bar. He's another strong candidate for funniest character of the game. He keeps ordering you to talk louder, then gets upset when you start shouting. Gunnar hates the festival and sailing. When you ask why 2 of his fingers are short, He tells you a fishtale of how he fought a bunch of sea creatures, complete with pictures. He finishes with the joke that he lost his fingers in a woodshop accident. I admire his dedication to silly stories. As usual, Nancy didn't bring any money with her on this trip. The second time you enter the pub, Gunnar makes you do Tor Mortar puzzles for money. I think this is the most hated puzzle of the game. It's like the evil older sister of the bento box puzzle from Shadow at the Water's Edge. The puzzle instructions need to be rewritten because they do not help. It is hard to figure out what you're supposed to do in this puzzle. I've never completely figured it out. If you know what you're doing, it is the fastest way to make money in this game. The other way to make money is to do the Icelandic vocabulary puzzle at the bar. Correctly match 4 English words with Icelandic words. The puzzle lasts 4 rounds. In the employees only closet, you can get a decoration and gasoline. Nancy overhears Gunnar and Elizabeth argue, as he refuses to serve the customers. I suspect he does not include himself on the list of customers that won't be served. The pub has a machine, which tells the story of Captain Lawrence and his lost treasure, but that costs money, so I usually don't watch it. It is kind of fancy looking, though. The next time you go to Soren's, Ned calls. He and Nancy had dinner reservations for their anniversary today. Nancy forgot all about it. I like this better than the forgotten date story in Game 24, because players have more control over the conversation. Nancy's given a few options on how to react. She can be mean to Ned, she can apologize, she can focus on the case like it's the only thing that matters. No matter which option you pick, Ned asks you to get him a souvenir. This changes the ending a bit. There's an ending if Nancy gets Ned a souvenir, one if Nancy doesn't get him anything, and everybody's favorite ending is the special one, where Nancy gets Ned the expensive sword. He loves it! Best anniversary gift ever! You get the souvenirs from Soren's gift shop. Don't forget to have him gift wrap the present you want. You also want to buy a dictionary and batteries for your flashlight. Imagine if Nancy brought home batteries as Ned's present. What a terrible gift that would be. The dictionary has Icelandic numbers. Use them and Soren's pamphlet to fix the dinghy's motor. It's a simple math puzzle. I like it. Putting it in another language makes it more difficult. You need to sleep at the pub in order to change the tide level. Sail to the lighthouse at high tide. Enter with Magnus's key. When you reach the top, call Alex. She explains the lighthouse puzzle. It's a variation of 2048, which is a simple tile matching game that went viral the year before this game was released. You can move the circles up, down, left, or right. Whenever you move, a blue circle appears in a random spot. Blue circles combine to form green circles, which combine to form red circles, which combine to form tricolored circles, which combine to form white circles. Get enough white circles to solve the puzzle. If you're playing on Master Sleuth mode, the white circles tend to clog up the board. This is a good puzzle, but it's tough because it's random. I'm sure there's gotta be some kind of strategy which I haven't figured out yet. If you get stuck on this puzzle, it's pretty rough. When you solve the puzzle, the windows open and it gets cold. If you don't solve the next puzzle quickly enough, Nancy freezes to death. It's a math puzzle with a pyramid of numbers. Each number is the sum of the 2 numbers beneath it. I like this puzzle. After you fix the lighthouse, Alex says, there's a button hidden on the side of the captain's chair. Press it to set off an alarm, which gets rid of Elizabeth for a while. I'm glad that Nancy only sets off one false alarm in this game, unlike the deadly device where she constantly sets off false alarms, like a huge jerk. Elizabeth's bag has the key to Magnus's cabin. Put gas in the snowmobile and drive out to the cabin. Ned calls. He's so nervous. He says everything's fine, just fine, perfectly normal. It's so weird, Nancy worries he's in trouble. Eventually, Ned's roommate Bert steals the phone and hangs up to save Ned the embarrassment. Magnus's house has a manuscript for sailor limericks. There are 9 decorations scattered around the house. I would have preferred it if all 10 decorations were here, instead of hiding the 10th elsewhere. But I guess the idea is that if Magnus had found 10 decorations already, he would have solved the puzzle. The decorations go on the ship's wheel outside the wheelhouse. Rotate the rings to spell out words like foot, stool, star, fish, and sun, flower. It's kind of tough, but I like it. This gives you the second part of the locator. Now you can solve the title charts puzzle. Find the correct spot on the chart in the wheelhouse. There are 2 charts. Sometimes I mess up by picking the wrong one. The puzzle gives you 4 numbers for the lock in the cupboard by the bed. That opens up the back wall of the hold. Inside is a dartboard puzzle. The numbers indicate how many marked tiles a spot is touching. It's sort of like shoveling ice in White Wolf of Icicle Creek, only it's more of a circle. I think the puzzle's okay. Solving the puzzle reveals a door. You need to find 5 gears to open this door. It is a little deceptive because the door shows spots for 4 gears. The 5th gear goes on top of one of the others. Back at Magnus's cabin, there are photographs on the wall. After you look at them, Nancy can explore inside the ice caves. Use the hook to get past the first ice wall. You want to explore the caves until you find a bag with sketch pieces. You can also find Soren's glove. If you ask Soren about it, he quickly makes up a story about why he was there. It's so obvious he's lying. I can't believe Nancy lets him get away with it. Magnus has a book. A handwritten note explains the crow's nest puzzle. It's right outside Soren's. Nancy can't find this puzzle earlier. Even though it's a bit conspicuous, it's the only part of this thing that's not covered in snow. This is a hard, good puzzle. You want to make 11 groups of 6 pieces. Solving it gives you another gear. Soren walks by with an ice pack. Soren complains Gunnar threw a bottle at him. Soren complains he has no idea why he doesn't move away. Magnus's cabinet has a crystals puzzle. You want 4 of each color down and across, with no 3 together in a line. I like this puzzle too. It opens up a footlocker. Inside is a music box and a sketch. All the sketch pieces go here. The cabin has a note from Dagny. She says the dog stole her spare luggage key. It's under the dog's bed here. Right above the dog bed is a stuffed animals puzzle. Put all the animals on the board following the rules. It's a basic logic puzzle, nothing too tough. Solving it gives you notes between Dagny and Magnus. She's pretty threatening. If you ask her, Dagny says that's just the way she does business. The notes say Magnus set up a fake rawhide bone. The key is under the dog bed on the ship. When you first return from Magnus's cabin, Gunnar demands to know what you're doing. He's surprised at how startled Nancy is, until he remembers he's a big scary man holding a knife. Ooh. There's an optional scene where Nancy sees Gunnar going out to sea in a boat. While he's gone, you can steal his coaster from the pub. I don't remember what triggers this scene. If you don't steal his coaster here, you can steal it when he's kicked out of the pub. The coaster is one of the gears. Once you get Dagny's luggage key, Nancy can get rid of Soren. So I was wrong when I said Nancy raises 1 false alarm. She raises 2 of them. She lies to Soren and says, somebody just stole a sweater from the gift shop. It's a fairly obvious lie since nobody else ever comes in this place, but Soren falls for it. He runs away screaming. Enter Soren's desk area from the back. Use the key on Dagny's luggage. That gives you picture scraps. There's also a book which has a letter from Moira to Dagny. You can't read the book, though. Soren's drawer has his glove and a note that says to create volcanic winter. That is the password to his tablet. It's a decent puzzle. You want to mix various elements to get things like glacier, desert, lava. Mix those for more things. And then make a volcanic winter with eruption and dust cloud. You can read Soren's emails. He complains nobody likes him, and he needs money to pursue his career. When you go outside, there are signs of a struggle by the heater. There are large footprints and a blood stain. The only sign of Dagny is her cell phone. The phone has pictures, which aren't useful. Her messages with Magnus say, there's something hidden in the bed frame. Her messages with Soren say, Dagny is no longer married to Alicia de Soto, who left 2 months ago. Maybe that's why Dagny is so angry and reluctant to make friends. When the game first came out, people made a big deal over this part because it's about two women being married. I don't know if people still make a big deal over it. Some people wish this part was far more prominent, while others wish it had been eliminated entirely. I'm sure those people fight with each other in the YouTube comment section. The bed frame has a Venn diagram puzzle. Some of the overlapping parts have numbers on them. You want to place numbers 1 through 9 on the board, so the board is completed correctly. I like this puzzle, it's great! Solving it gives you some picture scraps. When I played this game for this review, I got stuck at this point. Nancy's task list is not helpful in guiding the players here. One task is find all 5 gears. That's all. The hint should say where to find the gears, but it doesn't. The find all the sketch pieces hint is more specific, but it's still not good enough. It says Dagny and Gunnar have pieces for you. Well, Dagny's gone, and Gunnar won't talk about the pieces, so that hint doesn't help. I wish one of the puzzle instruction papers was changed to a list of where Magnus hid all the sketch pieces. That would be helpful. The same goes for the 5 gears. The non-obvious next step is to check the bilge pump. It's open! The culprit shoves Nancy inside. The game doesn't explain why Soren tried to kill Nancy here. If she had died, nobody would have found the treasure. The bilge pump is another puzzle. You have to rotate the 5 dials, all of which have 3 numbers. Get the numbers to add up correctly. I don't enjoy this puzzle, but it's okay. When you solve it, Elizabeth comes to help Nancy, and she gives you the 4th gear. You can overhear Elizabeth singing around this time. It's an old family song. It's really nice. I don't know what, but something triggers the scene of Gunnar being kicked out of the pub. Gunnar later appears inside the building. He's not in the pub, but he's still in the building. That feels like cheating. Gunnar asks you to get his special box, which he hid in the corner. It has a picture of Gunnar's daughter, who looks like Nancy. There's a newspaper clipping and a birthday card. For Gunnar's 50th birthday, he took his wife and daughter out boating. A sudden storm capsized the boat. Gunnar didn't have time to save them both, and despite his efforts, his daughter died before they got back to shore. It's such a sad story. I think the saddest part is when Gunnar admits he's only happy when he first wakes up in the morning, before he remembers they're dead. Gunnar admits he's been angry and blind in the darkness for too long. He decides to apologize to Elizabeth. He should apologize to Soren too, but that's probably asking too much. Gunnar later returns to the pub and gives you his sketch pieces. Ned calls Nancy back, saying he was nervous because his anniversary gift is an intangible declaration of love. He loves her so much, and he's no longer afraid that she'll die on one of her cases. You have the option of rejecting Ned here, which is so cruel. I like it better when Nancy says she loves Ned back. He's the only one she can trust in her world of suspects and liars. All the picture scraps go in Magnus's cabin. Get them to overlap to make the star design from the lighthouse. This puzzle is okay, but it annoys me. When you finish the picture, Nancy sees Elizabeth with a tarp. Nancy takes charge and decides that's it, she's not going to let Elizabeth keep secrets anymore. Nancy forces her way into Elizabeth's closet. She ignores Elizabeth's cries to stop. Inside the closet is Toomey the dog. He is so cute. Elizabeth confesses she kidnapped Magnus's dog to force him to talk to her. Nancy is correct when she says that is not a good way to handle a relationship. The fake bone is in Toomey's closet. Inside are Magnus's instructions for getting through the ice caves. The rest of the directions are in Captain Lawrence's journal. Elizabeth gives you sheet music for the song. You can now complete the music box puzzle. There is a reference book on music in the Misty Skip. You have to move the teeth around so they play Elizabeth's song. It can be a tough puzzle, but I don't mind it much because it's a good song. When you solve the puzzle, you get a green fish and part of Captain Lawrence's journal. When Nancy goes to the lighthouse, Dagny shows up. She confesses she faked her own disappearance so she could look for the treasure in secret. That sounds like a dumb plan to me. Everybody already knows she's a treasure hunter. As an apology, and as proof she's not a greedy villain, Dagny gives you a lion coin. Dagny isn't nice for long. She later calls to indirectly accuse you of stealing the sketch pieces from her luggage. That was like 5 puzzles ago, Dagny. Get over it. I don't like how Dagny forces you to go all the way back to town for this conversation, because now you have to go all the way back to the lighthouse, where you just were. The star mosaic hides a puzzle. It's like Sudoku, only the columns are slanted, and there are only 6 sections that get numbers 1 through 9. I like this puzzle. I can understand why some people really don't like it. Solving it gives you more of Lawrence's journal. Finding all 4 pieces of his journal is the last major puzzle of the game. Dagny's lion coin activates a treasure near the front of the ship. I don't like this puzzle. I always screw it up. Drop the coin in the 3 holes until you figure out the rules, then use them to make all the lion heads face upwards. This gives you the 5th gear. Use the 5 gears on the door for a 2-part puzzle. The left side is a fish moving puzzle. I really like this one. You go through the maze, you can change your piece's color or shape. Some doors are closed unless you're a specific color or shape. Get all the way to the end of the maze. It's a good one. I like it more than the right side of the box, which is another variation of Sudoku. You have to put 6 symbols on the board, 1 in each row or column. The trick is that the board labels where squares go, but it doesn't indicate if the squares are full or empty. Also, you have to use the yellow circle to cover up one of the blue square places. It's tough, but I like it. Both puzzles give you pieces of Lawrence's journal. Once you have the whole thing, you can go to the ice caves and follow the instructions. Destroy the correct ice wall to find Magnus. Magnus says Soren is the kidnapper. Soren was incorrect about how close Magnus was to finding the treasure. Magnus partially blames himself for Soren's descent into madness. If the villagers had been nicer to Soren, maybe he wouldn't have let his actions be guided by his desire for revenge. Nancy calls Alex for help, and this is great! Nancy called the authorities right away. I can't remember her doing that in other games. The games usually make an excuse for why Nancy can't call for help, like she doesn't get cell phone reception here. Soren appears with an axe and orders Nancy to find the treasure. I wish we got a little explanation of how Soren's crimes took place, but as he says, Nancy knows what happened. He doesn't want to give any details. Fortunately, Captain Lawrence made a fake treasure in case of an emergency situation just like this. Wow, way to think ahead several hundred years. Nancy finds the fake treasure. Soren says, "After all these years, I found it." Like he did all the work. Soren takes the box and leaves. He purposely causes a cave-in so Nancy can't follow him out the exit. Nancy follows the directions to the real treasure. You have to press the symbols on the lid in the order they appear in the song lyrics. This is an okay puzzle. Magnus punches through a wall of snow so he can get back to Nancy. He graciously offers the treasure to her, but she refuses. Nancy, you deserve some of the treasure. Don't let Dagny take it all for herself. Alex calls, saying Soren has been apprehended. Like Shadow at the Water's Edge, you get to choose whether the culprit should be treated harshly or if he should be shown leniency. If you're nice to Soren, you learn about how he does community service and becomes more popular in town. If you pick the mean option, you learn more about how he kidnapped Magnus. Elizabeth's family gets a share of the treasure. She and Magnus are traveling the world together. Gunnar is running the pub in her absence, and he's being nicer to tourists. Dagny doesn't stay in town long after she gets paid. She calls Nancy a friend in her goodbye note. Nancy says her time in Iceland is coming to an end. She liked it, but she's glad to be out of the darkness. And darn, I forgot this game ends with a preview of Midnight in Salem. It looks so good. I bet the original version of the game would have been much better than the version we got 4 years later. So that's Nancy Drew Sea of Darkness. It's a good game. I like the puzzles, the characters, and the dialogue. It's classic Nancy Drew to have her solve puzzles and clues leading to a long lost treasure. I'd say it's on the same level as the other darker and scarier games in the series. I liked it about as much as I liked Shadow at the Water's Edge or Ghost of Thornton Hall, so I give it the same score. I give Nancy Drew Sea of Darkness an 8 out of 10.